Good evening. Good evening. How is everybody doing this wonderful Sunday night? I just said evening and now it's night. So, my name is Christopher Bartley. I'm so excited because we actually just did a cool training a few hours ago and there was a request. Well, actually, it was my idea, but then the request was, nah, man, do it again. So, shout out to Dr. Sidney Freeman and Theodore Brown. There might have been a few others who were like, yo, listen, you have to do this again. So that's what we're doing. My name is Christopher Bartley, and what I do is I focus on two categories: unfocused businesses and frustrated leaders. And these are individuals who need to either increase their product revenue or their productivity. So, what we're doing today is we are going to focus on the frustrated leader, right? We're focusing on the personal development piece, and let's just get right into it. I don't want to waste your time. I think we spent about an hour. So let me give you some context though. So what I enjoy doing is I enjoy going live and then kind of exploring and creating strategies as I'm working through this thing with you, right? That's what I just enjoy doing. That's just the thing. That's my thing. And so what I'm doing now is doing it raw the first time and then going back and then creating some frameworks or kind of refining the framework, creating some of the diagrams and stuff that we talked about while we went live the first time. So it's two lives. One is just more refined. This is like a version 2.0. So right now, what we're going to do is teach you how to nurture your vision. And the way that we're going to do that is we're using Judges chapter 13. Let me tell you why I enjoy using the Bible. It's for two reasons. First of all, it helps me. Right, it's such a way to use a backstory or a backdrop of an individual or people or culture, whatever it is, to know that it already happened. There's nothing new under the sun. There was an example that's already documented for us to use. That's for me, right? The second one is really for you. When we're done with this live, if you never sign up for anything, if you never do anything else, you would at least know that you can go to a particular reference. And this reference today is going to be Judges chapter 13. You can go to the reference, read it through, and something that we talk about today is going to come out alive. It's just going to pop alive in the actual narrative. So those are the two reasons. One is a selfish reason, is for me, but the other one is if you get nothing else, you can get the reference and then we can go right into it. So how do you nurture your vision? How do you nurture your gift or your purpose? Let's share the screen right quick and take a look. So this is what it looks like. What we're going to do is we're going to now open up to Judges 13 and work our way through. Let's just go ahead and massage this thing. If you're not a believer, that's okay. Treat this as a case study. If you are a believer, you're going to be even more excited because of some of the things that if you didn't see it earlier today, we're going to reveal some of that stuff this evening, okay? So in Judges chapter 13, verse 1, it says this: again, the Israelites did evil in the sight of the Lord. So the Lord handed them over to the Philistines, who oppressed them for 40 years. All right. So here's the first thing that we're going to talk about before we even open up any of these boxes. The first one is this: you have to understand that perhaps you aren't reaching a milestone. You aren't reaching an achievement. You aren't doing something. Perhaps it's because there are some stuff that you have, some baggage or some old assignments, something that you haven't done already. If it's not for God, it's for somebody else. You might have a responsibility to someone else or to a company or something, and you have a vision for something else, but that stuff hasn't been done yet, and you're being blocked. From a believer's standpoint, you're being blocked on purpose by divine intervention, right? That we know that there's somebody who's blocking us. For those of you that don't believe in that, you might believe in karma. It could be that too, right? But for those of us who know that God exists, it's like, listen, okay, he told me to do one thing, but I'm not following that. How dare he give me other responsibilities or the ability to master the many if I can't even master the few, right? Or be ruler over many if I can't be ruler over the few. So that's the first step. Before we even go to the next things, if you know that there's some stuff that you got to handle, that you got to take care of, and you haven't done it, turn this off, go pray, go figure out what you need to do, then come back. This is going to stay on. It's going to be on YouTube. It's going to be on LinkedIn. Don't worry. It's going to be on Facebook. You can come back to this, but don't get excited about what we're going to talk about, but you're still doing evil in the sight. Like, it's not going to make sense. All right. So that's the first thing. You want to make sure that you clear that up right away. Okay. Here's the next thing, guys. So after the context of being set, where the Israelites, right, they're now suppressed. They're under the suppression, the oppression rather, of the Philistines. Verse 2, it says, now in those days, a man named Manoah from the tribe of Dan lived in the town of Zorah, and his wife was unable to become pregnant, and they had no children. And the angel of the Lord appeared to Manoah's wife and said, even though you have been unable to have children, you will soon become pregnant and give birth to a son. Okay, pause, stop. Here's the first step. Here's the first thing that we're going to unpack and look at, guys. The first one is this. You have to work your vision. What does that mean? Okay, so you already established what you want to do for 2021, right? But how many of you are probably still waiting for the messenger to come? How many of you are still waiting for an opportune moment for something to happen when really right now what you need to do is just work that thing? I've got a little bit of sticky notes here really for my reminder, and I think it might be too small for you to see it, so I'm going to walk you through these. But when I'm talking about working your vision, this is a story of Samson. And Samson isn't even born yet. Samson is the vision. Samson is the gift. Okay, so we're going to start off with that. So the nurturing of this vision is for the parents. How do you parent your own vision? Well, the first thing that you got to do is you got to start trying. Manoah and Manoah's wife, and we don't know to this day, we don't know what her name is, but Manoah and his wife had to continue trying to even figure out whether or not they would know they can have kids. There was no way that she would know that she couldn't have children if they didn't try. So there's no way that you're not going to know whether the vision or you're making progress or working towards it if you're not trying yet. But here's a few reasons why, and this is what I want us to get into. The first reason why it might be unfertile, so let's call this the unfertile part of what your vision is it's trying to manifest itself, but it's not happening yet, is probably because of two reasons. Here's the reason number one. The first one is, and I'm going to blow this up so that you can see it, is resources. Perhaps you just don't have the right tools. Perhaps you just don't have the right people. You don't have the right things in place so that you can move forward in progress for it. All right. So that's probably the first thing. Maybe you just need one book, not many books. Maybe you just need one for this year that's going to take you through. Now, obviously, you know, a lot of people who are successful and wealthy, they go through multiple books. I think up to like 60 a year. I'm not even on that level. But the point is, you're going to need some things in order for this to happen. So we don't know whether it was a physiological issue from the wife or from Manoah himself. We don't know whose fault it was. Maybe it was both. But the point is, they weren't able to birth the vision just yet. They didn't have some things. Here's the second one. And the second one really ties into what the second step is, right? Remember, we're talking about working your vision. The second one is this. Maybe your scope of what the vision looks like is too small. What do I mean? Well, if the first step is to work your vision, as unfertile as it may be, then the second step looks like this. You need to upgrade it. And the way that it's upgraded most times isn't because of you. What do I mean? What I mean is usually there's going to be somebody, it's a messenger, whether if it's God, whether if it's somebody that you know, whether if it's a business partner, whoever it is, there's somebody that's going to take what your idea or your dream was and add another layer on top of it that you weren't even ready for. Okay, now let's put this all together. Why am I saying this? I'm saying this because if we go back to this passage, they were trying to have a son. That was their vision. That was their purpose. Their goal is, listen, we want to make sure we want to bring a new life into this world. But look what the angel says. Look what the messenger says. The messenger says this when he appears to the wife, even though you have been unable to have children, which means that she tried, she was working towards it, you will soon become pregnant and give birth to a son. So be careful. You must not drink wine or any other alcoholic drink or eat any forbidden food. You will become pregnant and give birth to a son, and his hair must not be cut. Here's the upgrade. For he will be dedicated to God as a Nazirite from birth, and he will begin to rescue Israel from the Philistines. This dude, the one who was supposed to be born, who doesn't have a name yet. He's not only just supposed to be this boy that grows into a man, he's supposed to be a liberator. Upgrade the vision. So the first one is you got to work it. You got to start somewhere. Start with your limited resources. Start with the small scope that you have. Some of y'all are waiting for somebody else to pour into you and give you the big picture. No, not yet. You need to start what you have first. And yes, it will be unfertile for a while, but that's okay. Here's the next thing. A messenger will come. What I call this in the hero's journey, because y'all know I love the hero's journey, and a part of the storytelling paradigm is called the call to adventure. Let me just blow this up for you. You are eventually going to have somebody or a circumstance, a situation in your ordinary world. Manoah and his wife, ordinarily, they couldn't have kids. But then the call was try again, because now you will have a kid. But it's not just going to be a kid. It's going to be someone who's going to turn into a liberator for the entire nation of your people. That's a bigger vision than what they had anticipated. Bigger vision. And so that's exactly what happened. So here it is, where 2021 is we're only in the third week of January, right? We're midway, and you might have a particular idea or a dream or something that you want to work towards. But that's the problem. You are just trying to want to work towards it. You got to work towards it first so that you can know the gaps. You got to know what's missing. You won't know what's missing if you don't start. So you got to work that thing first. And then eventually there's going to come a person or a circumstance, a situation, an experience that's just going to blow your mind to an adventure that does this. What it does is it builds on top of your original vision. What do I mean? The vision that you most likely have right now isn't inextricably different from what God has already placed on your heart. If this has been something like I'm talking about long-term visions, these things that just have been sticking around for you for a while, a pervasive thought, an irritating thought that just hasn't left. And now you're like, okay, I'm going to embrace it. I'm moving forward. So now what's happening is you are embracing it. But what you don't realize is it's bigger than what you had imagined. God forbid he gives you the whole thing. You wouldn't even start. You'd be paralyzed. So what he does is he gives you just enough. And when you begin to work towards it, he says, okay, now you're ready for the call to adventure. Your call to adventure hasn't happened yet. There is a gap. So what's happening is a lot of us are still in this phase. Let me shrink this down for a second. Let me just move this here for a second. So for a lot of us, we're in the work your vision phase. We're working and we're working and we're working and we're working and we're looking, we're waiting, we're longing and asking for when is it time for me to see what's really going to happen? When is it time for the thing to happen, to come to fruition? And you're just like, I'm about to give up. The problem is, you think just because you're working towards it, that your call to adventure has been activated, and that's not the case. I know that sounds weird. It's like, but Chris, if I'm working towards the thing, then isn't that like no, it's not. You're still in the ordinary world. You haven't transitioned just yet because you haven't seen the bigger picture. Maybe not the full picture, but there's a bigger picture on top. You won't begin to see the bigger picture until you start working towards it. All right. So that's the first thing. Here's the next thing. He being God is not going to give you something that totally deviates from what you created. So his name is Cal Newton. And what Cal Newton says, he has a few amazing books. Cal Newton talks about So Good They Can't Ignore You. He wrote about deep work. He uses this phrase called career capital. In other words, if you want to build or to do something or pivot in your life, you have to think about all of the things that you've already done previously. And does it make sense to really change and throw away everything that you've built in order to go after a vision that might be uniquely different? It's very rare. It's very rare that somebody is going to go from one thing to another that's totally unrelated. So you think about somebody like, Gary Vee, he started with like the wine library TV and wine and all of that. And now he's the social media guru. Now you missed it. He started on YouTube. Right? He started on a social media platform. The wine was just the product. It was just the thing, but his system was using social media. That never changed. The career capital just kind of flowed right over. So what I'm trying to tell you is if your vision is bigger, but it's deviating from the stuff that has already been you've been cultivating, then you might want to think twice about whether or not that's the thing. It may not be, but if you know for sure, then okay, roll with it, because rarely it does happen. But most times what God will do is he will build on top of what you have already been working on. Okay. So some of you might get stuck this year because like, man, I don't know. I'm not sure if this is the thing. Is it building on top of it? Cool. Roll with it. Just go with it. Stop thinking or overthinking the idea or the fact. And I'm telling you this because that's what I was struggling with. Like I didn't know. I wasn't sure until one day I just said, you know what? You just got to work on it. You just got to work the thing. All right. I'm going to check in every so often to see if there are any comments or anything. Yo, P, I appreciate you for tagging people in on this. So here's the next thing, guys. You got to work your joint, right? We're talking about Judges 13. So I got to reset this thing. Judges 13. We're not even looking at Samson. We're looking at Samson's parents. How do you parent your vision? Okay. So you got to work it. That's what they did, right? They tried to have kids and they didn't realize that they didn't have kids until they tried. You won't know if you're infertile until you try to be fertile, right? Okay, cool. Next thing is the call to adventure would happen. That's the second stage in the 17th stage anti-hero's journey framework, 1949, Joseph Campbell. Check my man out. Google him, blow your mind. And if you want a simpler framework, look up Christopher Vogler because he has one for the cinematic arena. But I'm saying all of that because this stuff isn't just made up. This stuff is already in existence. We're just packaging it in a different way. Here's the next thing, though. After the vision is upgraded, you need to find a system. What am I talking about? Well, here's what the angel, the messenger, told the parents. Take a look at these guys. He first gives them the good news. Oh, you weren't able to have children, but you will soon become pregnant and give birth to a son, but you got to follow some rules. Be careful. You must not drink wine or any other alcoholic drink, nor eat any forbidden food, and you will become pregnant and give birth to a son, and his hair must never be cut. Rules, rules, and rules, for he will be dedicated to God as a Nazarite from birth. Guys, that's a system. That was a Nazarite system. This is a covenant. This is something that's now going on for them to now embrace the fact, not really them, but the soon-to-be mother to embrace that in order for this vision to be maximized, there are particular things that I'm going to have to do. There's some stuff that I'm going to have to work out, that I'm going to have to follow if I want this thing not just to come to fruition. I don't want a stillborn. I want a healthy newborn vision. So what do? Well, the first one was dietary. So there's some physical things that Manoah's wife had to do. Remember, we still don't know Manoah's wife. We still don't know her name. So there's some physical things that she had to do. From a dietary standpoint, she couldn't take in any alcoholic drink. Now, it's interesting that for Samson, who wasn't born yet, he was going to follow the Nazarite vow. But for the wife, she also, in a sense, had to partake in something that was similar to that system. Now, some people can argue, well, it's for a physiological reason. I haven't gone into depth as to why that was the case, but we do know that when a lot of women, when y'all pregnant, y'all not supposed to be drinking stuff, right? That we know for sure. Right. But there could be other reasons. And so I'm going to put here and I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. We got physical reasons, definitely some spiritual reasons. So there's a spiritual system involved, right? The covenant of the Nazarite vow, like that is a system. There are particular things that you had to follow until your promise was fulfilled to God. And then the system ends, like you're done. And then there was also, I just added here mental, because obviously you can't have the physical and the spiritual without the mental, guys. So what I'm saying is this: now that you have an understanding of the bigger picture, just a little bit bigger. I'm not talking about those of you who've been oming your way and all of a sudden you got the bigger picture. You've already been working this thing. You've been working this thing and now you're like, oh, wow, hold on, wait, man, there's some more pieces to this puzzle that I need to make. Yes, there is. What that is you now need to find a thing that's going to make it sustainable so that you can continue working towards what is going to happen in the future. Okay, so let me give you a quick example. So for me right now, right? So I've been in business on paper, I've been in business again since 2017, right? Moved back to Miami and created an LLC and like literally just started working. And it was only until 2018, end of 2018, I said, wow, you know what? If I want to get to a different place, I need to change the scenery. So I became a part of a co-working group. Y'all know WeWork, but then it became, but they also had something called WeWork Labs. It was this founders program, like the Startup Accelerator, where people who were founders can now become a cohort together, grow together, learn from each other. And the language, the lingo, even the way that we were doing business changed, because it wasn't just about going from project after project. It was doing something sustainable and convincing, scalable enough that investors would be like, ooh, I want to drop 500 grand down for that. Like numbers were being talked, not to me, but around me, because I'm just kind of listening in. And these were numbers that I didn't really even consider for myself. I'm like, really? That's really? And it's like, it wasn't even like I was in a magical place. I mean, it was magical at the time, but it was just a regular place with people just that knew how to work, knew how to do business. So I was now immersed in the system. Fast forward, COVID happens and it disbanded a lot of us. And so I realized between then, it was about a year, guys, that I'm now out of a system. I was just really moving from project to project. It was challenging. And so for some of y'all, as I'm doing this, if y'all can resonate with that, let me know, drop it in the comments. But for some of y'all know exactly what I'm talking about. You fell out of a system, particularly because of COVID. And for some of us, we suffered from it. For others, they actually was able to leverage the system even more and became even more successful last year in 2020. So I recently now was fortunate enough to become a part of the cohort of the group that started in WeWork, but it's in a different company now called Navigate. It's a really awesome group. And the point is this. The point is, I'm now part of a group of individuals who know how the system of building a sustainable and scalable business works. That is my example. So it's one thing to say, I want to get into business for myself, right? I want to be able to work for myself, and the dream that I have is impacting people. Cool. Let me start working on that. But I realized, man, hold on, wait a minute. I need to upgrade, because even though I'm doing a lot of freelance work, I'm not really a startup. And I used to confuse the two. Freelance is not a startup. So then I said, okay, well, how do I make that shift? I became a part of a group that knew how systems work in business. Really, business is just another term for the system, and we're going to talk about that. All right. So that was the next thing, guys, that I was able to learn. So after you find the system, because that's exactly what the angel told Manoah's wife, the next thing that you have to do is you have to know how to articulate your vision. Retell your vision to yourself. So that's how come I put here, you got to tell it to yourself first. It doesn't matter to anyone else but you for now. You are the most important person that needs to know how to tell your own story. Stop rushing to try to tell somebody else when you don't even know how to tell it yourself yet. It's not going to work. And it might work, but you're so not convinced just yet, even though you worked your vision, even though now it's upgraded, and even though you found a system, you're still not fully convinced. So you now tell somebody else your story, and they will repeat something that's similar to your story, but just a little bit different, because they envision something different for you. As much as they love you or hate you, whatever it is, and you might say, you know what? You might have a point. Man, you know how much time, I don't want to say wasted, but how much time I wrestled with this because I wasn't telling myself over and over the original vision. So what the first thing that you need to do, and I think I already have it down for the last step, but write it down. Write down your vision statement. That's something that I can help you with. That's part of the whole business side of things. We can talk about business right now. This is personal development, but write down what the actual vision is. Write down the purpose. Write down all of that. So let me give you an example. This is what I struggle with, and I had to be like, man, I had to go back to what I wrote down 4 years ago now. And this is what I wrote down 4 years ago. I said that my vision is to become the world's leading strategic framework and design company for kingdom living. That's the vision. And the mission is to realign gift with purpose in every frustrated leader through design and strategy. And then I have 5 frameworks. Maybe if I have some time, I'll talk about those 5 frameworks. But if it falls out of those 5 frameworks, I'm not in my lane. If it's not talking about businesses that know how to run but are unfocused, it's out of my lane. I don't do KPIs and all of that. I'm struggling with that right now, right? So there's that. I have somebody to help me for those things. But there's some stuff that I really know very well, like value proposition statements. Like, that'll take you far. So you got to know what your lane is. Find the system, but then you got to retell the vision. Don't get stuck here. Don't get stuck in this. Don't get stuck in the system, and then you forget that it's bigger than the system. There's a vision that needs to be told over and over to yourself first. Here's what happens. Here's what happens if you choose not to tell yourself the vision first. Let me move this over a little bit. Here's what happens, guys. I call them, well, I don't call them that, but Jack Welch, the late great Jack Welch, actually, he does this in business. It's called the A, B, and C players. There's another term for this that is, let me see if I can go to the next one right quick. Give me 1 second, guys. I just need to go to this next one. Okay, here we go. Who are your players? A, B, and C. He calls it it's like a rule. It's like the 70. No, sorry. Ooh, that's not 70. This is the 20, 70, and 10 rule, right? So we're talking about retelling your vision. What we get stuck in is we start getting stuck in retelling our vision to the C players. Who are the C players? Well, let's go from A to C. Your A players in business are the individuals who know the vision and are going to just take it and run with it. This is something that I learned personally, and it's really through ministry that I learned this. And I had a quadrant of like 4 types of people. The first type is individuals who know the vision or who see the vision and will run with it. That's type number 1. So let's actually, let me write that out. They see it and they run with it. The others, the second type, is they see it and it's like, I don't know. They need to push because they can see what you're doing. They see the purpose, but they're not that convinced yet. You would consider those your B players. So this would be your A. This would be your B. Now, there are those now who don't see it. So I'm just going to put here they're blind. But if they were to see it, they would run with it. That's like C-ish. And then you've got those who are blind and they don't care. I don't know if you have people like this in from a ministry or from a corporate standpoint. When you've been doing work, start categorizing the type of people that you're working with. So for me, I had 4. Jack Welch has 3. Your A players are the ones who are your top 20%, your creme de la creme, your top performers. You don't need to tell them much. They know exactly what to do. Bah, they'll go forward and do it. Right? Those are your A players. Your B players is where the majority of your business, ministry, whatever it is, that's where the majority lie. Those are the individuals who they see it, but they continue needing encouragement. They continue needing training. They continue needing skill development. Like there are things that you have to pour in a lot into your B. Your B is where you will spend a lot of your time. It should be where you spend a lot of your time until you start getting some of your A's to do what you should be or what you were doing for your B's. Your C's, man, you don't want to spend much time on those. You want to spend enough time for them to see whether or not they can see it and, get to the, I don't know, but I see it and I don't want to get there. Or if they say, I see it, but I don't care, or I don't see it and I don't care, you got to cut them loose. The C's is where you want to spend the least amount of time possible. Here's the problem, guys. What we're doing is we're spending a lot of time trying to articulate what our vision, the purpose, the big picture is, and it's scary for us. Just imagine you trying to now share and spend a lot of time with your C players. And when I say your C players, I'm talking about the individuals who were like, Manoah, what do I mean? So let's continue, because it says the woman ran and told her husband, a man of God appeared to me. He looked like one of God's angels, terrifying to see. And I didn't ask where he was from. He didn't tell me his name, but he told me, you will become pregnant and give birth to a son. You must not drink wine or any other alcoholic drink or eat any forbidden food. For you and your son, for your son will be dedicated to God as a Nazirite from the moment of his birth until the day of his death. She retold the story. She knew exactly what to say, guys. Let me go back to it. Let me go back to it right quick. Hold up. She did step 4. She knew who she was talking to. But before she even knew who she was talking to, because technically Manoah was a C player, y'all, I ain't gonna lie, she was able to retell the vision. She was able to articulate exactly what the angel told her. And I love the fact that she said, I don't know who he was. I don't know who he was from, but he told me a vision. And I'm excited to share this with you. Yes, your vision should be exciting. It should be so exciting, but you need to learn how to express that excitement and pour that excitement into the other people around you, especially if you are leading. You have to be excited about it. If you're not excited about it, don't expect them to be excited about it. So she's now articulating this thing to Manoah, and then your man, Manoah, man, he says this, but she continues. He says, but he told me you will become pregnant and give birth to a son, but you must not drink wine. And so she goes down this whole thing of the steps. And then in verse 8, we're in Judges 13, guys. For those of you that are just chiming in, what we're doing is we're breaking down the narrative of Samson's parents, not even Samson, but his parents, and understanding how to nurture your vision or your gift, the dream, the thing that you want to happen this year and beyond. What is it that you need to do? So we've been going through the steps just in this chapter so that after we leave, if you don't get none from me, you will at least know where to find it. Judges 13, we're in verse 8 right now, where Manoah now prays to the Lord, saying, Lord, please let the man of God come back to us and again and give us more instructions about his son, about this son who will be born. This is crazy, guys. Let me tell you why this is crazy. This is crazy because the next step is that Manoah is starting to ask for what has already been given. I put here, you have enough. You have more than enough to move forward. Guys, you have more than enough. Moving forward means that you know exactly what the vision is. You may not have all of the resources just yet, right? You may not have all of the resources right here, but you at least have enough. You got the scope down packed. You know exactly what it's going to take in order for you to go ahead and start moving forward. And I think that that's the piece that a lot of us struggle with. Now that we know, now that we have some things, we still are like, God, please send it to me again. Give me the vision again. And it's crazy, because I think for a lot of the large visions, you always see this in scripture. Oftentimes you see it in scripture where God has to show up more than once. He showed up more than once for Abraham. He showed up more than once for clearly for Manoah and for 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 his wife. There are examples where he has to continue reminding, right? Continue reminding us, and it's not for his sake; it's for us. If we really took it once and moved forward, we wouldn't have an issue, right? And so I say all of that because you choosing not to move forward but waiting and praying more, I'm trying to tell you right now, stop praying. Stop praying about what you already know what to do. Stop doing that. Verse 9, take a look. God answered Manoah's prayer, and the angel of God appeared once again to his wife. This is grace. The fact that he was like, hold on, wait, but I already told your wife. You want me to, all right, you know what, God, you know what, Manoah, I'm going to go ahead as God, and I'm going to answer your prayer again. Take a look at this. Answered once again to his wife as she was sitting in the field, but her husband Manoah was not with her. Listen, guys, even the angel was strategic. As a matter of fact, this A, B, and C situation wasn't really for the wife, as much as it was for the angel. The angel said, your wife is an A player. She sees the vision and she's ready to run with it. Manoah, you a C player. You don't really get it yet. You don't see it, and you need a push. You're not even a B player yet, Manoah. And so what I need to do is I'm not going to come to you and try to convince you. That's not my role as messenger. Y'all got to know y'all roles too. There's times when you're supposed to show up to convince, to persuade people, but there are other times when it's just supposed to give the message to the people who already accept it. And then those people can work on the B's and they can work on the C's, because there's other things that you need to do with your time. Stop wasting time trying to convince the C's. We just talked about that. So Manoah's wife may not know better because, that's the husband, right? And she has to tell him. It's a collaborative effort for her to have this child. But the angel doesn't come back to Manoah, even though Manoah was the one that prayed. He goes back to the A player. Master T. Angel's like, listen, I'm divine. I ain't got time for this. Let me go back to the person who actually knows. Crazy, right? So this is the cool thing, because as the angel comes back, he then shows up in verse 10, and she quickly ran to her husband. And the man who appeared to me, this is what she's saying to her husband, the man who appeared to me the other day is here again. So she's excited. And so Manoah ran back to his wife and asked, are you the man who spoke to my wife the other day? Bruh. Manoah has a belief issue. Okay, let's break this down. Manoah is a C player. So his wife comes the first time and says, listen, we've been trying so hard to have a child, but somebody came with the vision. I don't know who he is and I don't know where he's from, but came with me with the vision. And so we're going to have this thing. And then he says, okay, I need to see it for myself. Show us again. God strategically, sends the angel so that it comes to the A player, Manoah's wife, whose name he still don't know, instead of Manoah. And it was his prayer. Now that the wife sees him, she's running and saying, hey, listen, he's here again. Now Manoah is like, oh my goodness. Now Manoah is like, okay, I'm coming with you. I want to see this man. And then he sees the man, and then he says, are you the man? I don't know. Listen, a lot of us have the Manoah syndrome. We have the C player syndrome, guys. We have this issue. We were wrestling and we're struggling with the idea that the vision is already made plain. The system has already been given, but for some reason, we're still dragging our feet. We're still asking questions, and we drag our feet. I want to make this very clear. The way that a lot of us drag our feet is by trying to interrogate more about the thing. Manoah just said, listen, are you the guy? So this is what the angel says. He's very short and to the point. Yes, I am. And so Manoah asked him, when your words come true, what kind of rules should govern the boy's life and work? Wifey just told you this, Manoah, but the angel goes through it again. He obliges him. So the angel of the Lord said, be sure your wife follows the instructions that I gave her. She must not eat grapes or raisins, drink wine or any other alcoholic drink, or eat any forbidden food. Then Manoah said to the angel of the Lord, please stay here until we can prepare a young goat for you to eat. Man, Manoah's missing the point, guys. Manoah's missing the point, because take a look at this. Verse 16, he says, okay, I will stay. The angel of the Lord replied, but I will not eat anything. However, you may prepare a burnt offering as a sacrifice to the Lord, because Manoah didn't realize it was the angel of the Lord. Then Manoah asked the angel of the Lord, what's your name? For when all this comes true, I want to honor you. Check out verse 18. The angel says, why do you ask my name? It is too wonderful for you to understand. Listen, guys, I want to stop here. Manoah is tripping because, and this is the next step. I want to show this to you. The next step is this. If I can just get over to this thing right quick and remove it. Okay, before I give you the next step, I want to give you this first. So here's the caveat is sometimes we don't have the faith. Sometimes we are not A players just yet. Even though we're doing the work, we might have adopted a vision. We might even have to retell ourselves this thing. Not even might to, we should. And we're moving forward. But there are times when you're going to ask God for the sign or ask God for the confirmation. He himself may tell you, or there are other people that may tell you, or there may be some successful milestones that show up that tell you that you're on the path. And the reason why I'm telling you this is because the success doesn't look the same. As a matter of fact, a lot of you have seen this before, right? The success graph. And what the success graph looks like is pretty much this, right? You've got this line, and it's supposed to look like this, right? Success. But what it really does in real life, y'all have seen this before, is it looks like this. You think you're going one way, and just when you think you're going to make it, oh my goodness, you're taking steps back. And I put time there, but it could be anything. And then you even hit a low, and then you come back. You might even hit another low below the success line, and then eventually you make it. The reason why I put all of this down here is because I want you to know that there are going to be moments when you feel this way. And I want to encourage you that you will have people or things or God himself to affirm you in your path, in your progress. That's important for you to know. Accept it when it comes. At first, I put here, expect affirmation. I want you to accept the affirmation, because too often times when we are making progress, sometimes we brush it off because it's not the thing. It's not the fruition of the vision. It's not the end game. And so we start to forget about the times that somebody showed up and poured into our lives, even if it was just for a moment, even if it was a text message or a phone call or an email or a DM or a like sometimes from social media, whatever it is. We tend to forget and to shrug off those things. For a lot of us, especially high achievers, if you're a high achiever, you shrug off those things because it's not the big picture. It's not the main thing. What I want you to do is I want you to accept the fact that success isn't going to be linear, number one, so that when you do come across these affirmation moments, collect them. Don't hold on to them and get distracted. But collect them, because there's going to come a time when you're going to need to remember that somebody did say they believed in you, that somebody gave you the opportunity to spread your wings, even though it wasn't for the vision just yet. Okay, that's so important, guys. That's so crucial. Accept the affirmation. Don't expect it. Yes, it's going to come. That's too easy. Accept it when it does come, especially when you're at a low point. So let's go back to the expectation graph. So you're going to have the success graph. You're going to have a moment here where somebody's going to speak to you and pour into your life. You're going to have a moment here. All of these conjunctions. You're going to have a moment here. You're going to have a moment here. You're definitely going to have a moment here at the bottom. You're going to have a moment here way at the bottom too. You're even going to have a moment just before you actually make it, because sometimes you might fall off the beaten path, right? So you're going to have these moments where you can go back and reflect and remember that there is somebody or some people or an event or a success, an achievement, a milestone that poured into you and encouraged you. Okay, remember those. Accept those. Write them down if you need to, and then keep it moving. And that's the whole key. You got to keep it moving. All right, so let's go back, because here's the downside to all of this. Y'all remember Manoah asking, "What's your name? Where you from? Can I make you something to eat?" Like all of these things. What we call that in productivity world is distractions. Compare and contrast Manoah with Manoah's wife. Manoah's wife, actually, when he shows up to Manoah, y'all remember, she says, "Listen, I don't know his name. I don't even know where he came from, but he's spoken to the vision. He's spoken to the dream that we had of having a child. That's all I need. All I need is that, and I'm going to move forward." Manoah, on the other hand, got really caught up with all of these questions. From whence thou came, like all of this stuff. Not only that, but now he's getting busy trying to create a sacrifice. Do y'all realize that what's about to happen? I'm going to read it. Do y'all realize that what is about to happen didn't need to happen for Samson to come, for Samson to be born? The angel already came. And as a matter of fact, he wouldn't have come a second time, but he came on behalf of Manoah. And you know why I think he did that? I think he did that because it would be so difficult. It'd be so difficult for Manoah, because I mean, Manoah's going to be the giver in this point. We're talking about having a child, right? He's going to be the giver. Manoah's wife is the receiver. Can you imagine if he doesn't believe and he has given up on the fact of having a child? So it's like God acquiesced and said, you know what? I'm going to show up again, but to the A player. And then when you come, you will actually see in the flesh that this thing is real, because it's going to take both of y'all for this thing to happen. So there may be, and oftentimes there is a vision that's not just for you, but it's for the person that you might be tied to or connected with, because we live in community. So most of the visions that we have, it's probably not just for us, which means this is helpful for those of you that have Manoahs in your life. And what you're going to have to do is you have to be patient with them, but you also have to check them when they start getting distracted. You just might be the Manoah if it's a vision that's personal for you and nobody in a sense is directly impacting how it's going to happen. Okay. So I say this because take a look. Manoah then, verse 19, he took a young goat and a grain offering and he offered it on a rock as a sacrifice to the Lord. You remember, he's like, let me prepare something for you because, I just feel so indebted. The wife is just probably looking back like, all right, go ahead, Manoah. I already know the vision. And as Manoah and his wife watched, the Lord did an amazing thing. What was that? As the flames from the altar shot up towards the sky, the angel of the Lord ascended in the fire. The Manoah and his wife saw, and when they saw this, they fell on their faces to the ground. And the Lord or the angel did not appear again to Manoah and his wife. God, there's no more need for that kind of affirmation, right? You had enough confirmation to know that it's going to happen. And I want to suggest that there's probably a difference between confirmation and affirmation. The confirmation is already there. It's going to happen. The affirmation is, yes, please keep going. And so Manoah finally realized this. He was the angel of the Lord and the wife. And take a look at this. He said to his wife in verse 22, we will certainly die, for we have seen God. Oh my goodness. Manoah is shook now. Manoah asked for his name, where he came from. He asked for preparing a sacrifice. And then what the angel of the Lord does is he jumps into the fire and it's like, whoo, just kind of just evaporates into up into the sky. And take a look at this, guys. But his wife said, because now Manoah is shook, like, oh my goodness. He goes from interrogation to now fear, which is about to sabotage the entire vision. And the wife says, hold up, honey, wait a minute. Verse 23, if the Lord were going to kill us, he wouldn't have accepted our burnt offering and our grain offering. Number one. Number two, he wouldn't have appeared to us and told us this wonderful thing and done these miracles. She's like, babe, hold on, slow down. You tripping. Like, this is good. Like, slow up. And this is crazy because what I want to suggest to you is that you can get so caught up. You can get so enamored with all of the magic and the even the affirmations, and you can even get caught up in and maybe magic isn't a word, but it seems magical, right? But the miracles, all of these things that you forget the big picture. Manoah's wife knew the big picture. She said, hold on, wait a minute. He didn't have to do all of that. But the fact that he did, it's just confirmation. It's just confirmation that we are on the right path. He showed us the vision. This is cool because what happens next is that when her son was born, she names him Samson. And the Lord blessed him as he grew up, and the Spirit of the Lord began to stir him while he lived in Mahanadan, which is located between the towns of Zorah and Eshtaol. Okay, so what's the last thing here, guys? The last thing is this. I need you to name your milestones. Let me just pull this up because I didn't touch on these. There's a difference between busyness and business. I know that they're, etymologically, oh my goodness, the etymology of these two is probably the same, coming from the same thing. But just because you're doing work doesn't mean that the work is amounting to anything. What does that mean? Business is a system, and busyness is unconnected actions. One is you're doing work that's specifically getting you towards a very particular goal or a high achievement. If you watch, I'm not a sports fan, but if you watch football, if you watch baseball, maybe baseball, yeah, but I think baseball too, but basketball, if you watch these sports, eventually you'll start hearing, and you don't even have to watch them. You just got to listen to the commentators or the people like on ESPN and those guys. They'll talk about the system that's in place, which is why, for college ball, like the top, was it the top 3 or the top 10, whoever, forgive me, are always there. The top 4, the big 4, I guess. They're always playing in the finals. They're always playing in the bowls. They're always playing in the playoffs or the championship. The reason why is because there's a system that's bigger than just them. Hey, listen. So I'm not a basketball person, but there's this whole talk about about who is it? James Harden and Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, right? And the issue is they said the system ain't gonna work. Oh, well, they're looking to see if it's gonna work because 2 out of the 3 are individuals in a system that they're in where it's typically built around them, and they're the ones that need the ball. That's Harden and Kyrie, apparently. KD is usually the one who's okay to acquiesce. He did that when he went to the Warriors. So listen, guys, I'm not saying anything that I really know. It's just the things that I've heard. But like, yo, it piqued my interest because they were talking about systems. And so people are really interested to see how this is going to work because they're saying 1 out of the 3 of them, or maybe 2 out of the 3, I'm not sure, have to give up what they're used to in order for the bigger picture to happen. Kyrie's not winning anything because he's not working within a system that works. That's just the reality. You had a person, right? Let's call it who it is, LeBron James, who knew how to build systems around the team that he was with. That's like when he went to the Heat, they won 2. When he went to Cleveland, they won. And now Lakers, they win. Like, he knows how systems work. So what I'm saying is that perhaps they might be B players or whatnot, but the point is this. The point is that just because you are busy doesn't mean that you're running a business. Just because that you're doing actions, if they're unconnected, you are not in a particular system that's going to get you to a decided goal, particularly your vision. So this is what happens at the end. What happens at the end is Manoah's wife names Samson. Here's what I want you to do. Your vision will come to fruition. And when it does, it may or may not be the final achievement. Most times it's not. Most times there are more things that are unpacked. What I need you to start doing is I need you to start naming your benchmarks, your milestones, and those achievements. Now you can call these whatever you want. Most people differentiate between a benchmark and a milestone. Or an achievement is like the high thing, and the milestone is like the sub thing. And the benchmarks are just the things that's used to measure. It's like, oh, wow, we reached the benchmark, but it's not really a milestone because the benchmark gets to the milestone. There's so many different ways, so much nomenclature around this stuff that explains. Just choose the thing. But what I want you to do is you got to know how to write it down. Let's shrink this down and let's write it down. And the reason why you want to write them down is the same reason why your affirmations is going to be important. You need to know when you have reached an achievement. I used earlier today. I used I think the movie on Netflix was called Bird Box. Remember with Sandra Bullock, and she didn't name the children until I think the end. I don't even know if they had names at the end. And she'd always call, boy, girl, come here. Can you imagine though if it was just more than one boy and more than one girl, and she's just calling out names, everybody just running like who me? Pulling up the claw, like, is that me? Like, the point is this: you have to be so intent. You have to be so intentional on making sure that you not just articulate and retell your vision. You got to know when it came to pass. You got to know when there was something that was significant enough that should be written down so that you can actually say, okay, I know that I've reached this point. There's no reason why I should be discouraged. So let's go back to this graph right here. The same way that you're writing down your affirmations is the same way when you hit a milestone here, when you hit a milestone here, when you hit a milestone here. As crazy as the graph looks, because it doesn't look like you're actually moving anywhere, you are moving. And this is probably not fair to make it look as if you're going back in time. I know it's a terrible example, but the point is you will have moments where you will say, yes, I made it. Probably not just yet, but I made it. I made it to the next step. I made it to the next stage. All right, guys. So that's all I have. Let's go back and just to recap here. So we've been talking about nurturing your vision. We used Judges chapter 13 as the backdrop. And the first step into nurturing your vision is you need to work it first. That's the first thing that you need to do. You need to know you won't know the gaps. You won't even know that you're unfertile in creating certain things. You won't know the resources that you're supposed to have or the scope, how limited your scope might be if you just don't work it. That's the first thing. The next thing is your vision will be upgraded. It's not on you. It's not incumbent upon you to upgrade your vision, but it's incumbent upon the divine giver, that's God himself. It's incumbent upon that person who has instilled in you the vision to begin with. So what he's going to do is he's going to give you what we call in Storyland the call to adventure. It's going to challenge you to break out of your ordinary world to do something even greater. You have received the vision in your ordinary world, so to speak, for the intents and purposes of this paradigm. The call to adventure usually comes by way of a messenger, by way of an event. It's something that's external from you that says, okay, you were thinking about this and you're on the right path, but I've got something greater for you. Right? The parents were looking for a child, but what God sent them was not just a child, but a liberator in the child. So he's not usually going to give you something that's totally or so far off from what you had envisioned when you're aligned with him. When you're already aligned with God, the vision is there. But then when you decide to work towards it, he says, okay, now let me give you some more. Now let me give you some more. Here's another resource that you need. Here's another thing that you need. Let me broaden your scope a little bit more. That's what upgrading the vision means. That's not for you to do. It's going to happen as you are working. Okay. The next thing though is you need to find a system. Now you can do it the hard way or you can do it the easy way. The easy way is there are already systems that exist. If you want to be wealthy, there's a system for that. Want to have a successful business, there's a business for that. If you want to be an amazing culinary artist, there's a system for that. If you want to understand the inner workings of photography and cinematography, there's a system for that. If you want to have better YouTube videos, there's a system for that. There's actually a group right now, RK3, Robert Kennedy III, has, I think, two. He has a storytelling group and a YouTube group. There's a system for that. If you want to have better ministry and leadership, there's a system for that. Pierre Quinn is the guy. If like there are people now that I'm starting to connect with or fortify relationships with, where when I look at them and when I connect with them, I see that they also have a system that they operate in. So perhaps this is going to be me for this year. I don't know about you, but perhaps you need to connect with individuals who have different systems for different needs. I just take it or leave it. You know, I'm just saying, find your system. But don't forget that you need to retell the vision. The system is not the big picture. The vision always has been. And so you need to be able to write down and articulate it first for yourself. Nobody else. Articulate it for you first. That's the most important thing. And then what you want to do is, if you're in a team especially, know who your A players are, that 20%, know who your B players are, that 70%, and know who your C players are, that 10%. Stop wasting time trying to retell your vision to your C players. Start with your A players, and then you can turn those A players into star managers even, or star bosses who can then feed or pour into your 70% while you're still continuing to do other things that feed the vision. All right. So manage your time wisely when it's time to start retelling the vision, but tell it to yourself first. Don't try to tell it to somebody else, because they're going to jank up your story and you're going to start to believe what they believe, which is not what the vision originally was. It's going to mess you up. It's going to throw you off. And then 2021 is going to look like 2020 all over again. Okay. The next thing is you want to then move forward. What I'm saying is that you already have enough. Don't be a Manoah. Don't start asking from whence thou came. Don't ask what your name is. Leave all of that stuff out though. You have the instructions already the first time. Take it and run with it. Manoah was good. He didn't trust his wife enough. He didn't trust his wife enough. I think it's such a paradox, especially in the Old Testament, because, you know, the Old Testament framework, well, really a lot of the Bible is a patriarchal framework, right? Culture. So the fact that the messenger came to the man, even though they were to the man and not to the woman, it'd be problematic. Well, how can he give you that vision but not me? God, can you come again? And he came again, but to the same person who's the A player in the team. Manoah was not an A player. So the angel strategically went to the person who accepted it the first time. All right, so that's what you need to do. Move forward. You have enough. The next one, though, is you need to accept affirmation. That's step number 6. Understand that affirmation will come. For those of you who are high achievers, though, you'll have a hard time accepting the fact that people are trying to pour into you. They're giving you a good word, but you're just like, but that's not the vision. That's it. It's part of the process, though. It's part of the process. Embrace the process. Embrace the affirmation that they give you, because there will come a time when it's going to get real quiet. And if you don't write down in a gratitude journal or something, the stuff that people have been telling you, you're going to have a hard time when it gets real quiet and isolated. It will happen. All right. Here's the next step. The second to last step is to reject distractions. Manoah, yet again, let me make some food and sacrifice for you. Let me do this. Let me do this. Oh my goodness. He's a God. We're going to die. Look at the big picture yet again. The wife was like, hold on, calm down, babe. It's not that deep. He wouldn't have done all of this if it wasn't going to happen to begin. There's a reason why he did all of this. And it's not because we're going to calm down. I'm just trying to tell you to calm down. Stop distracting yourself with a lot of busy work. Busyness is not business. Business is a system. Busyness is unrelated actions that don't lead to your particular goal. A system does. A system is sustainable. Systems can be scalable. That's what you want to focus on. So the best example of that is in sports. There are particular teams that always win. The Patriots always won because they had a system that built around the coach, Belichick, and Brady, the quarterback, right? Like that was the system. Now look at that. Brady's now on another team. And I don't really know how they're doing, but I don't hear nothing about them. So clearly they need to work on the system, right? So that's what it's about. You have to understand that the picture is bigger than you. The vision, think of your vision, it's in need of some systems that are in place. Now, you are a very important part of the system, but you are not the vision, and the vision is not you. It's bigger than you. So there's some resources that you will need to make it happen. And there are particular, if you want to think of systems as rules, that's exactly what they are. They're rules that should not be broken if you want to make sure that you succeed. So when I say system, think of a set of rules that should be adhered to 99.999% of the time. The problem is we're not moving forward, and we're not consistently making progress because we have not followed the rules that we set up for our own system. We got to do that, guys. Here's the next one. Naming the milestones. That's the last one. You have birthed the vision. What is your vision called? You reach the milestone. What is the milestone called? You reach the benchmark. What is the benchmark called? You know what that means? That means that you got to establish those things before it happens. Don't wait for the gender reveal party and then you're still trying to figure out what the name of the baby is going to be. Stop with all of that. Stop getting excited and then you don't even realize or remember what you got excited about. Name the stuff so that when it's time for it to happen, you know exactly what it is. Right? That's how you nurture. See, we're not talking about how do you reach your vision? How do you accomplish it? This is not about accomplishing nothing. This, chapter 13 is the backdrop. It's the setup for everything that Samson does afterwards, as ratchet as his life was for the majority. This is all about you being the parent. This is all about you being the nurturer for the thing that has come upon you that you know you're supposed to do. If it's creative, if it's scientific, if it's something in between those two, you are now, and you have to see yourself now as the parent of the child. Okay? And don't romanticize the system. Sometimes the system has to change. Okay? So let's move on. Let's move on. So for those of you that loved or enjoyed this thing, what you can do is the first thing that you're probably going to wrestle with when you're talking about visions is you probably made some poor decisions already in 2021, maybe in 2020, maybe 10 years ago. And you have a hard time explaining your narrative. You have a hard time explaining your mistakes in a way that does two things. It doesn't criminalize yourself all over again, and it doesn't demonize or blame other people for what has happened. So you need to find a way to do that thing so that people understand, oh, wow, you learned the lessons. You've been able to extrapolate and navigate through those mistakes. And the way that you just articulated that was, okay, I get that. And it takes ownership to do that. So what I have is, it's a presentation. I turned it into a playbook. It's over, I think, like 100 slides so that you can take a look at to understand how you can share your mistakes the right way, right? How do you contextualize your mistakes? And so with that, you're going to get a few things. And one of the things that you'll probably, I think probably the largest thing that you'll take away from it. And let me just pull this up right quick so that you can kind of see here, at least so that I can see here, is you get a new storytelling framework to help with shame, because shame has a big part to do with it. You get steps on how to take your long story and make it short. You'll use the story card format to contextualize your story to other people. For some of us, it's not whether or not you should tell your story, it's how you should recontextualize that story or reframe it based on if you're talking to a family member or a friend or a colleague or even a stranger or an acquaintance, right? So it's the same story, but you got to find different ways to do that. So you're going to learn that in there. And you're also going to learn how to just tell your truth with confidence. Okay, so that's what this is about. When you get a chance, go ahead, download the free playbook. You just go to bartleygroup.com/free-playbook. playbook. And I just created a pop-up. So even if you just go to my homepage, it'll show up there. But that's it, guys. Christopher Bartley here. And what I do is I connect, or better yet, more than just connecting, I use the story framework. But what I do is I help frustrated leaders, and I'm helping unfocused businesses in the world of storytelling to either increase your productivity or to increase your product revenue. Today, we didn't talk about product revenue in business. We talked about the personal development piece. We talked about how do you use a storytelling format in order to just live a more meaningful life, beginning with nurturing your vision. So that's my time. I will see you guys on the next one. And you can contact me. There's my information at the bottom, chris@bartley.group, if there's any questions that you have. But yeah, go ahead, sign up for the free playbook. It's usually $60. It's free now, only for this online training that we've just done tonight. And yeah, I'm excited because this year is going to show and reveal a lot of new insights. And looking forward to connecting with you guys so that we can make this year the year for our vision to be fully nurtured and maximized in the future. I'll see y'all later.